When Ember Calloway walked out of that boardroom, they thought they just destroyed her career. They had no idea they'd just created their own executioner. Welcome to Judgment Call. I'm your host, and today you're the jury in a case that will make you question everything you think you know about loyalty, revenge, and corporate justice. But before we reveal how one fired employee brought down an entire empire, you need to understand something about power. Real power isn't given, it's taken. And Ember Calloway was about to teach them that lesson in the most expensive way possible. Ember Calloway was the kind of employee every company claims to want, but few know how to keep. For 8 years, she'd been the invisible architect of Ainsworth Global's success, the woman who built firewalls while others built egos, who solved crises while others created them. At 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, while most of her colleagues slept soundly in their suburban homes, Ember sat in a fluorescent-lit server room, her fingers dancing across 3 keyboards simultaneously. She wasn't just fixing code, she was saving the company from a security breach that could have cost them everything. Another all-nighter? Her assistant had asked the next morning, noticing the empty coffee cups and the rumpled blazer draped over Ember's chair. The price of keeping this place afloat, Ember had replied, not looking up from her screens. What she didn't know was that Declan Ainsworth, the CEO's golden nephew who'd been parachuted into a VP role with all the qualifications of a trust fund and a charming smile, was already planning her downfall. You see, in corporate America, there are 2 types of power: the power you earn and the power you inherit. Ember had spent 8 years earning hers. Declan was about to use his inherited power to destroy her. But here's what neither of them knew. Sometimes the prey becomes the predator. The email arrived like a digital death sentence. Mandatory attendance. Declan's birthday gala. Ember stared at the screen, her coffee growing cold in her hands. Mandatory? For a birthday party? She'd been working 18-hour days to close a critical security patch, a billion-dollar algorithm that kept their global network from collapsing like a house of cards. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. "Sweetheart, will you make it for dinner tonight?" Ember's chest tightened. Her mother had been in and out of hospitals for weeks, and every missed dinner felt like borrowed time slipping away. She typed back quickly. "Tomorrow. Just need to finish this push." It wasn't a lie. The algorithm wasn't just important, it was critical. Without it, the next board meeting would be a bloodbath. Another notification slid across her screen. A Slack message from a colleague. "Word is Declan hates anyone who skips his party. Says it's a loyalty test." Ember smirked. A loyalty test. She'd been loyal to the work, to the company's success, to everything except the politics that mattered more than performance. What Ember didn't realize was that she was about to learn the cruelest lesson in corporate survival. Competence without politics is career suicide. But sometimes, when they try to bury you, they don't realize you're a seed. At 9:15 a.m., Ember walked straight into an ambush. The executive boardroom felt colder than usual, its glass walls reflecting a skyline that suddenly seemed foreign. Declan Ainsworth stood in the center like he owned the building, which, technically, his family did. His tailored navy suit was sharp enough to slice through air, and that trademark smirk played at his lips like he was savoring a private joke. Behind him sat his uncle, the CEO, arms folded, face carved from stone. "Ember," Declan said, rolling her name slowly, like a taste he didn't like. "Thanks for coming on such short notice." Ember placed her hands on the back of a chair, waiting for context. Instead, she got a execution. "As of this morning, your employment is terminated, effective immediately." For a split second, the words didn't register. Terminated. Her mind scrambled for reasons: budget cuts, restructuring, a project gone wrong. But Declan kept talking, every syllable slicing into her like paper cuts. "You've demonstrated a lack of commitment. Missing last night's event, not a good look for someone in your position. We need team players, people who fit our culture." Culture. She'd carried this company on her back for 8 years, built the algorithm that kept their entire global network from collapsing, and now she was being erased by someone whose biggest accomplishment was throwing his own birthday party. But here's what they didn't know. Ember Calloway was about to show them the difference between being fired and being unleashed. What happened next would go down in corporate warfare history. While Ember sat in that sterile boardroom, listening to Declan's smug dismissal, a series of digital time bombs she'd unknowingly planted months earlier were about to detonate. You see, Jonas Wren, the former CFO who'd vanished overnight after a quiet retirement, hadn't just disappeared. He'd been planning. 6 months earlier, Jonas had approached Ember with what seemed like routine paperwork. Buried in a stack of compliance documents was something extraordinary: an LLC formation, a trust agreement, and an intellectual property carve-out that would make legal history. "Just sign here," Jonas had said casually. "IP protection, standard stuff." Standard. Nothing about Jonas Wren was ever standard. The text came as Ember packed her desk. "Leave the building. Cafe 27. Jonas Wren." Her pulse thundered in her ears. Jonas Wren, the man who knew where every corporate body was buried. What Ember discovered in that quiet cafe would transform her from victim to victor, from employee to empress, because sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting everything. The revelation. "Before I walked out of that building a year ago, I set something in motion for you," Jonas said, his silver hair catching the morning light streaming through the cafe window. He slid a silver USB across the table like a loaded gun. "Your system, your patents, your licensing keys, all of it belongs to you now." Ember stared at the drive, its weight electric in her palm. "Declan thought he humiliated you. Truth is, he just activated the nuclear option we've kept buried for half a year." The cursor blinked on Ember's screen as she completed the digital transfer. One click. Two-factor authentication. 8 years of her life sliding from their servers into the vault of Callaway Innovations, the LLC Jonas had built to protect her. The algorithm wasn't theirs anymore. It was hers. Within minutes, every executive who thought they just solved their Ember problem was about to discover they'd created their extinction event. Because when you fire the person who built your entire digital infrastructure, you better make sure they can't take it with them. The Empire strikes back. The notifications cascaded like dominoes. "System alert. Deployment license expired. Please contact Callaway Innovations to renew." 13 floors above that quiet cafe, chaos erupted in the boardroom that once radiated power. The CEO's voice thundered against glass walls. Declan stood rigid beside him, his morning's bravado curdling into panic as sweat beaded at his hairline. "All global deployment functions are locked," the IT chief stammered through a slideshow filled with red error screens. "Every node requires a renewal key from Callaway Innovations." The general counsel adjusted her glasses, her tone slicing through the room. Actually, Ember negotiated an IP carve-out clause tied to performance benchmarks. She met all of them. Without her signature, you have no enforceable claim. As Ember sipped her coffee in that corner booth, reading alerts confirming her digital coup, something volcanic churned under her calm exterior. They'd called her disloyal? They were about to learn what disloyalty actually looked like. 6 months later, the headlines told the story: "The heir who sank a fortune." Declan's photo showed him leaving the glass tower, jaw tight, suit rumpled, the weight of failure clinging to him like smoke. The algorithm that was supposed to be Ainsworth Global's crown jewel was now powering their biggest competitor's expansion. Ember hadn't just taken her work, she'd licensed it to Helix Dynamics for $940 million. At the press conference, photographers captured the moment Ember transformed from ghost to goddess. Her nameplate read, "Chief Innovation Officer, Ember Calloway." "How does it feel to hold the future of an entire industry in your hands?" a reporter asked. Ember looked straight into the nearest camera lens, her reflection glimmering in its dark glass. It feels like the beginning. But here's the question that will haunt boardrooms for decades. Was Ember Calloway a brilliant strategist who protected her life's work? Or was she a vengeful employee who weaponized corporate law? In just a moment, you'll decide her fate. Ladies and gentlemen in the jury, the evidence is before you. Ember Calloway spent 8 years building the backbone of a global corporation. She sacrificed personal relationships, missed family dinners, and worked through nights to keep their empire from crumbling. In return, she was terminated because she missed a birthday party. But here's where it gets complicated. She had secretly protected her intellectual property through legal mechanisms that allowed her to reclaim her work when fired without cause. She used those protections to license her creations to competitors, effectively crippling her former employer. The charges. Count 1, justified self-defense. Did Ember have the right to protect her life's work from corporate politics? Count 2, corporate sabotage. Did her actions constitute unfair business practices that harmed innocent employees? Count 3, ethical breach. Should she have disclosed her IP protections to avoid this outcome? Your verdict is required. Guilty. Ember crossed ethical lines by hiding her IP protections and weaponizing corporate law for personal revenge. Not guilty. Ember was a brilliant professional who protected her work from corporate injustice and incompetent leadership. Cast your verdict in the comments below, but remember, in the court of public opinion, every voice matters, and yours might be the deciding vote. Closing arguments. The case of Ember Calloway challenges everything you think about corporate loyalty, ambition, and justice. Was she a brilliant strategist protecting her work, or a vengeful employee exploiting loopholes? The result was precise, legal, and powerful. No leaks, no rumors, just smart moves to safeguard her creations. Justice or revenge? That's for you to decide. Join our jury, subscribe to Judgment Call, and cast your verdict on more stories like this.